All that we see or seem is but a dream within a dream, said Edgar Allan Poe. And so, once upon a time. There was only one way to find out if Betty was having an affair. He would have to follow her, or better still, get a private detective to follow her, tap her mobile phones, and probably get someone to hack into her emails if such people really did exist. Stephen sighed inwardly and laid his head back on the headrest of his swivel chair. What could have led to events that were so heartbreaking? He could never imagine that Betty would cheat on him, and that too with his friend Roger, his best mate, friend from school. What could have gone wrong? Had his love not been enough? If his business associate had not seen Betty in New York with her own eyes and sworn to Stephen that it was Betty and no one but Betty, Stephen would have probably never doubted Betty. Add to that, Betty had told him that she was going to be in Baltimore with her mother. Had she been in town with him, his associate would have been clearly mistaken, but her not being in town made Stephen wonder, maybe, what if? He checked around and soon figured that Betty had not been to Baltimore at all. Heartbreak began, and yet those were the early days. Now it was just too far gone. Stephen's eyes glazed past the various addresses and the telephone numbers of private detectives with the folds of the yellow pages. He was fairly down the list when his eyes fell on the name Leonard Chomsky. This was odd, very odd. Could there be two people with the same name? Yet, Leonard Chomsky was too unique a name to be so common. Of course, the most important fact that defied the algorithm was that Leo was dead. He had been dead for 10 years now. How could he be alive? And a detective at that. Leo, Roger, and Stephen had been a triumvirate of sorts in high school and in university after that, till poor Leo fell victim to his favorite sport and killed himself on the ski slopes of Europe. The man who answered the phone certainly sounded like Leo. When Stephen asked him if he was Leonard Chomsky from Elizabeth, New Jersey, Leo surprised him by saying, "Hello, Stephen. It's been a long time." Leo and Stephen met at the deli on the Capitol Hill. Leo had not changed at all. He looked exactly like he looked in university, like he had not aged a single year, almost cherubic. Stephen had no idea how Leo could be alive when Stephen had attended his funeral himself. Leo laughed uproariously and told him that he was terribly mistaken. He never went skiing after university. There was obviously something wrong with Stephen's understanding of the situation. Stephen thought it was best not to argue and rather talk about the matter at hand. Leo was both shocked and disgusted at Roger for doing what he had done. He had never met Betty and could not really pass a judgment on her, but Roger? It was unacceptable. Leo had a plan in mind. He would gather all the evidence to start with, and then Stephen could decide what he wanted to do with the both of them. He could either go for a simple divorce, or then he could go in for simple revenge. Stephen agreed. That very night, Leo called Stephen and asked him to step away into a room where Betty could not hear him. Stephen stepped away from the lounge, pretending it was a work call. Leo sounded breathless, worried even. "Stephen, you're in trouble. Betty and Roger are trying to kill you. They're going to make it look like an accident. Roger has arranged to hire a car. It will have a Louisiana number plate with a registration number ending 516. You need to get to the police station. I'm going to see you there." Stephen could not understand what the hell was going on. And then he could feel a burning in his chest, like there was electricity going through it. A strange kind of ringing filled his ears, and he could hear people shouting. He was completely disoriented. And there was light, and he could see a doctor bending over him with a defibrillator in his hand and heard him saying, He's out of his coma. Oh my God, this is a miracle. When Stephen woke up, he was much calmer. His eyes saw Betty crying in front of him. He couldn't believe that he had seen what he had in a state of coma. No wonder he saw poor dead Leonard Chomsky. He also wondered if anyone would believe if he told them what he saw in his whole dream kind of thing while he was in coma. Betty held his hand and told him how he had an accident. It was a hit and run. They still had to get hold of the driver, but it was going to be tough since there were very few leads. On cue, the policeman showed himself into the hospital room. He looked over at Betty and then at Stephen. Then in a grim voice he said, "We have found the CCTV footage where we can see the number plate of the car that hit you. It's a Louisiana number plate ending in 516. Stephen could see Betty gasp. Leo had come to him to help him in another world. And now he had to get Betty and Roger in this world.